But we start tonight with what the Democratic Party stands for. In this week's congressional elections, Democrats lost all across the country. The axiom that all politics is local is dead. That might have been true in the 1970s, but with cable television and the internet in nearly every home now, all politics is national. When I asked Congressman Alan Grayson yesterday on MSNBC why he lost in his district, he pointed to a national phenomenon.
It was a national disaster. I won by 4 points in 2008. I went back and checked to see what happened to all the Democrats who won by 10 points or less in the House in 2008. And believe me, 10 points is a lot more than 4 points. What I found is that of the 24 Democrats who won by 10 points or less in 2008, only one of them won this year. 1 out of 24.
It didn't matter. It didn't matter at all. Whether you were in Florida or Ohio or Colorado, if you were a Democrat, you got swept out by the same force. So that leads to the obvious question. Was there a failure in the national message of the Democrats? Congressman Grayson thinks so.
They've got their strategy intact. What about our strategy? Our strategy for 2 years has been appeasement. And look where it got us. I think Democrats want to see a fighting leadership. They want to see a fighting president.
That sounds exactly right to me. There's another theory, though, that the Republican message won the day and that they now have a mandate.
Well, the American people spoke, and I think it's pretty clear that the Obama-Pelosi agenda is being rejected by the American people. They want, as I said last night, they want the president to change course. And I think it's change course we will. I think it's a mandate for Washington to reduce the size of government and continue our fight for a smaller, less costly, and more accountable government.
But what's weird is that when the country clearly and loudly voted for the Democrats in 2008, John Boehner did not step out of the way. In fact, he made it his mission to block the way in every conceivable way. So when the country votes for Democrats, it means nothing. But when it votes for Republicans, that apparently is supposed to have a huge political meaning. The nattering nabobs of mediocrity in the Washington media, I'm sure, will agree. In fact, President Obama was asked if he or John Boehner was in charge now.
I think the overwhelming message that I hear from the voters is that we want everybody to act responsibly in Washington. We want you to work harder to arrive at consensus. We want you to focus completely on jobs and the economy and growing it. I think that there's no doubt that as I reflect on the results of the election, it underscores for me that I've got to do a better job, just like everybody else in Washington does.
Mr. President, they asked you if you or Boehner were in charge. That answer sounded like a concession speech. Here's how I would have answered. That's a fair question, since the Republicans just took the House. But let me tell you something. John Boehner represents the 8th District in Ohio. I am the President of the United States. I'm definitely in charge. Make no mistake about it. Next question. But both Boehner and Grayson do have a fair point. The issues are decided on a macro level these days. So on that level, we know what the Republican message is. Lower taxes, less government. Everyone knows it. Whether they deliver or not, you know where they claim to stand. Now, what do the Democrats stand for? I'll give you a minute to think about it. Anything? Anything? You want another minute? Look, what's brilliant about the Republican framing is that it forces Democrats to take the opposite stand, which they don't want to do. Who wants to tell voters that they're in favor of higher taxes or bigger government? So the Democrats have been running from this fight for at least 30 years. Did it ever occur to them that they should go on the offense? How about you lay out an agenda, not just on the issues, but a meta agenda on what you stand for? You're not going to be surprised to find out that I have some suggestions. Look, it's just as simple as the Republican platform. It actually represents progressive ideology and is something all Americans can get behind. 2 simple planks on the platform: opportunity and responsibility. Democrats stand for opportunity because they want everyone to have a fair chance. They don't want equality of results, but they definitely want everyone to have a shot. So, for example, Democrats want to invest in a better education system so that a kid growing up in Logan, West Virginia has just as much a good chance as a kid growing up on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Responsibility is something that all Americans, conservatives and liberals, can relate to as well. It's what the Democrats do. After the children in the Republican Party make a mess by cutting taxes for the rich, blowing up the deficit and crashing the economy, the Democrats are always brought in to fix the problems. They're the adults in the room. Bill Clinton cleaned up after Reagan and the first Bush. They gave us huge deficits, and the Democratic president left us with a giant surplus. Until, of course, the second Bush screwed that up and let us have another huge deficit. We hired Obama to clean that up, and the economic collapse, also created under Bush. And then we got impatient when he couldn't clean it up quickly enough. Look, Democrats always wind up taking the more responsible route. They should at least get credit for it. Another upside to these planks, other than having the advantage of being true, is that they are also hard to counter. What are Republicans going to say? We're against opportunity and we hate responsibility? While that might be accurate, it's not really a winning political slogan. But all of this requires leaders who are willing to make their case and stand up for their beliefs, not leaders who buckle at the first sign of a Republican talking point. When Republicans say they want tax cuts for the top 2%, the correct answer from the Democrats should be, we are the party of responsibility, and it would be wildly irresponsible to give the richest people in the country another tax cut while our deficit is exploding. There they go again. Republicans, the party of fiscal recklessness. We won't stand for it. Now, that wasn't that hard, was it? They could have given that answer. If the Democrats don't wake up to the reality that politics is national and that you can't win without a coherent, easily identifiable message, this week will only be the beginning of their troubles.